Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 141 for the 11th of Nissan in a leap year. So it is Yud Aleph Nissan, the 11th of Nissan. So this is a big day in Chabad because it commemorates the Rebbe's birthday, the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory's birthday. So we celebrate this day. We believe that birthdays have a special power where many extra blessings come down through that person on that day, and especially after the person is, especially a tzaddik, especially someone like the Rebbe, and once they are no longer in this world anymore, then they are no longer bound by the limitations of the physical world, so it's a very special day. Those of us who say special Tehillim in honor of the Rebbe, we begin saying the new Tehillim every year that passes, so I thought I would mention that. So anyhow, so let's get into the Tanya for today. So I titled this podcast episode, if you haven't noticed, When the Cat is Away. So we all know that phrase, when the cat is away, the mice come out to play, right? And it speaks to us because we can all identify with it in the sense that let's say if we are working at a job, right, and the CEO goes on vacation and is away for a little while. So there's a very different energy in the office when the CEO is not in town. And imagine that then when the CEO comes back into town and he or she walks into the room, just see if you can picture that for a moment. How are people, what's the body language of the people going to be? What is there going to be a shift? There's a similar thing that we can see if, let's say, we can observe a similar type of thing if there are children sitting in a classroom and they're waiting for the teacher to come and they're playing and having fun and everything. And all of a sudden the teacher or maybe the principal walks in. What is the energy in the room going to look like? It's going to shift, right? So this is the theme of today's Tanya. And what we'll actually learn about today is that actually, in truth, in reality, in our lives, the cat is never away. So we are always being observed. We're always being monitored. And our grand boss, our grand teacher, principal, whatever you want to call it, is Hashem. So we've been talking about, we're in the middle of chapter 41 and we started this theme yesterday. We've been talking about how the preliminary step of serving God, of having a true spiritual service, is cultivating a sense of reverence, a sense of awe, a sense of fear for our Creator. And the Alter Rebbe here is giving us a really practical way to do this, is by really thinking of God as a king of flesh and blood. So it's kind of funny to think about this, if you think about it, because really, in truth, we should actually have a lot greater fear for God than a fear of a king of flesh and blood. However, we are physical beings. We are limited in our perception. We don't see truth and see things as they really are. So it can really be useful for us to have this more physical kind of analogy to help us understand and cultivate this fear. So while sometimes thinking about God can be very abstract when we're trying to develop this personal relationship with God, but if we think about an actual physical king or an actual physical boss, maybe the president of the United States, even though not to get too political, but I don't know if the current president of the United States would cultivate so much fear in a lot of people nowadays. But theoretically speaking, the leader of a country, the boss of your company, whatever it is, then somebody you respect really greatly, if you picture them in your mind and you picture them walking into your room as you were just kind of lazing around, you can kind of have a better sense of the kind of energy, the kind of mindset that you should have in terms of relating to God. So let's get into the text. It's pretty short today and see how the Alter Rebbe explains this. So the Alter Rebbe begins with a couple of citations. The first one is from Breshis chapter 28, verse 13, which says, Vehina Hashem nitzav alav, which means, and behold, Hashem stands over him. And then the second citation is from Yeshayahu, chapter 6, verse 3, which states, Melo chol haaretz kvodo, that the entire world is filled with his glory. So the Alter Rebbe begins with these two citations to really illustrate that this is really the truth, that God fills the entire world, and God does stand over each and every one of us. And God is scrutinizing his kidneys and his heart. So obviously, this is meant in a more figurative way, that God is basically sees the inner workings of who we are, like our inner intentions, what's really going on the inside. Is a person serving God properly? And thus, we really need to stand in front of God with a sense of reverence, a sense of ema in Hebrew, and yira, and fear, like awe, as if you were standing in front of a king. And to really deepen in your thought this idea, and to really lengthen, like think about this at length, according to the understanding of your mind and in your thoughts, according to the amount of time that you have. Like if you have spare time, you should really use that time to really think about this and think about God before you involve yourself in Torah study or in doing a mitzvah. Like, for example, before putting on your talis and tefillin, if you're a guy, obviously. And so that's actually the end of the section. So just to recap, so basically the Alter Rebbe is just making this really practical for us here, this idea of cultivating this fear and awe of God. He's saying that the way that we can do this, and what we really should be doing, is we really should be cultivating this sense of reverence, of awe, of fear of God, the same way that we would if he were a king of flesh and blood. And we should do this according to the ability of our mind, and to do it at length, and really to do it in depth, according to the amount of not only our intellectual capacities, but the amount of spare time that we have. We should really use the spare time, especially when it comes to right before learning Torah or before we do a mitzvah, to really try to cultivate this sense of awe of God. So once again, to bring it back to our analogy of when the cat is away, the mice come out to play. In our case, the cat is never away. And we have to really remember that. Even if we may not see the cat with our physical eyes, the cat, quote unquote, is always there. So that's it for today. And we will continue along these lines tomorrow. And I'll speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.